act, this heinous violation of your rights, as something bigger than just yourself. So also, if you could speak to that as well.
Well, first of all, let's just point out that my passport wasn't seized by the State Department. It was seized by armed members of the Customs and Border Protection Service, 3 of them to be precise, who pulled me out of the line right before I was boarding the aircraft. They took control of the passport and said that they did so on the authority of the United States State Department, on the orders of the United States State Department. They didn't show me those orders. They didn't tell me what the authority was. They couldn't even tell me who in the State Department to call to get clarification. They just took the passport. And since then, there's been no update. I've reached out to the U.S. government, to the State Department, and even when I get human beings, they immediately shut up and the best they could do is give me an address to write a letter. And so that's where we're at. But, this isn't rocket science. I was issued this passport in 2021. And I have traveled extensively with this passport, including 2 prior trips to Russia. The Customs and Border Patrol showed great interest upon my return both times, taking control of my passport and asking me numerous questions. The U.S. government was informed in advance of my travel plans for prior trips and this one. What made this different is that this time I was going to speak to the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, the largest forum of its type in the world, the most important forum of its type in the world. And then I was scheduled in August to speak at the Moscow International Security Conference, which again is probably the preeminent security conference in the world right now, given the current geopolitical situation. And in the interim, I was going to carry out a 40-day tour of Russia, one of the goals of which was to make a documentary film that would capture the essence of Russia, bring it back.
Ladies, pay attention here. Here's 10 facts
I think I hit the trifecta of fear on the part of the State Department, who shut it down. And that's what happened. The State Department made a deliberate decision to shut this trip down, to make sure it didn't happen. And, it's an infringement on First Amendment rights. Whatever excuse the State Department comes up with, we know what it isn't. There's not an outstanding warrant for my arrest. If there was, I wouldn't be here. You don't seize the passport and then say, go. You say you're under arrest. That's what due process is all about. I'm not in arrears on my taxes. That's another reason. I don't owe child support or I don't have alimony payments. There's nothing of that nature. So the State Department made a decision in the past to let me travel. It was a concerted decision on their part. They said, yes, he can travel. This time they said, no, he cannot travel. Why? They didn't want me to speak. That's sort of an infringement on freedom of association. That's an infringement on Fifth Amendment rights of freedom of travel. That's an infringement on freedom of speech. The State Department apparently, doesn't understand what the Constitution is. They may come up with some hocus pocus, gobbledygook. But the bottom line is I was traveling on a valid passport issued to me by the State Department in 2021, a valid passport that the State Department allowed me to travel several times in the past 2 years, including 2 trips to Russia. And now the State Department decided you're not going to travel. It was specifically to stop me from attending these conferences and carrying out this filming. And there's no other way to spin this, none whatsoever.
Well, you must be doing something right, Scott. What exactly do you believe they're so afraid of? I mean, you were going to go travel around Russia. You had a lot of goals for this trip, including the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. So I'm wondering your assessment on what is the quote unquote threat, do you think, for allowing you in particular to speak? Because, you are one of the few people in the United States who was going to make this kind of trip. If anyone else is doing this, the project itself is unique unto your efforts.
I can't speak pocus, gobbledygook. But the bottom line struggle to get into their mindset. I know that they do not want to have anybody come up with the antidote to the poison of Russophobia that the State Department's been spreading throughout the United States and in Western Europe. And again, this is what I do. This is what I'm about. I'm about creating the antidote to Russophobia. And I do that by traveling to Russia, by speaking to Russians, by gathering information that the United States government doesn't want gathered and which the mainstream media won't gather. I assess it fairly, without bias, and then I regurgitate it back into the United States and to be consumed by the American audience. And I think, I don't want to toot my own horn because it's really not about that, but for better or for worse, depending on your point of view, my message has been gaining traction, both in the United States and abroad. When I started this project back in 2023, when I traveled, or let's say the summer of 2022, I think I had 17,000 Twitter followers. And today the number is up over 353,000. That's just an indication of the scale of expansion of attention that's being paid to my efforts and the efforts of those people who help me. And so we're in the process of gaining critical mass at an important juncture. I mean, this summer is going to be a critical summer for the United States because of upcoming elections. And the last thing, a politicized State Department, and that's what we're dealing with here. We're not dealing with a State Department that represents the United States of America or the American people. We're dealing with a State Department that operates solely at the behest of the executive branch to carry out the political objectives of the President of the United States, in this case, Joe Biden, who, by the way, is my mortal enemy. And so I think the State Department understood that, and the White House understood that this effort that I was undertaking was gaining traction and had the potential of becoming a political problem for the Biden administration in the summer of 2024. So they shut it down. But you want to know what the irony is of all this? There's that old saying, there's no such thing as bad PR. Well, if they wanted to stifle this, if they wanted to stifle me, if they wanted, it backfired. Look, let's be frank. The State Department wanted to embarrass me. That's the whole purpose of this. There's one reason and one reason only they can take away my passport. They haven't articulated it, but I know what it is, and everybody knows what it is. I'm a registered sex offender. Now, I reject that title. I've made it clear I'm an innocent man, but it doesn't matter. The government has put that title on me, and the purpose of that is to make me embarrassed to appear in public, to make me hide in shame. It didn't work. Why? Because I ain't guilty. Why am I going to hide from anything? I'm going to hide from nothing. And for those people out there saying, you're guilty twice, I don't care about you. You don't matter. Get out of the way. I'm going to continue doing what I do for those people who care about the substance of what I have to say. What the State Department did is pull a passport that didn't have the International Megan's Law travel stamp in it. Now, remember, I didn't avoid anything. They gave me the damn passport in 2021. I was released from prison in 2015. They returned my passport in 2014, returned my passport in 2015. I submitted it for renewal. They knew who I was. They didn't put the stamp in it. They let me travel. They knew all this because, like I said, under the law, 21 days in advance of any international travel, I have to provide a complete itinerary. Where I'm going, who I'm meeting, where I'm staying, the whole thing. It's all laid out. There's no secrets here. They got it all. And yet they let me travel in the past. And on there, the thing clearly says, I am doing this because I am a registered sex offender. I'm required by law to do this, even though I say I'm not a registered sex offender. You say I am. Therefore, I'm obeying the law. Because if I don't and I try to travel without doing this, I go to jail for 10 years. I ain't going to jail. So I submit the paperwork. It's submitted through. Everybody knows, totally compliant. Their goal right now is to pull the passport and then put the stamp of shame inside my new passport. and somehow believe that that's going to intimidate me from traveling, that somehow now I'm going to be too ashamed to travel. Stick it where the sun don't shine, State Department. You can't intimidate an innocent man. You can't shame an innocent man. You only shame yourself. I'll carry that passport. I'll travel with that passport. It doesn't, I mean, it bothers me. It's a stupid thing. But